Welcome, everyone, to the Win Now podcast, hosted by Deborah Byrd, founder and CEO of Plug and Play SM.
I am so excited for today's show, so let's go.
And then myself, Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Win Now podcast. I'm your host, Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon. I'm joined, as always, by my co-hostess with the mostest, none other than Deborah Byrd, the CEO of Plug and Play SM.
What's up?
What's
Happy
up?
Monday,
I love that.
everybody.
You know, people can't see who are listening to us on the podcast. You got the Beat Yesterday shirt on. I like that.
Yes, compete every day.
Compete every day. That's great. And so, of course, you know, we don't really ever do commercials on here, but we finally just launched out. First 10 episodes are available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And so we would just love you. We don't ask for much since we don't advertise, but if you would just subscribe so that we get some subscribers and we get some momentum on the podcast channel of your choice, that'd be great. And then I have no doubt today that our guest will earn a 5-star review, but if we ever do earn enough to earn a 5-star review, we would love that as well. But take it away, Deborah.
Well, so I had invited Levi Lascsak. I always get nervous with your last name. And yes, he is based out of the Dallas area. But if you haven't heard of Levi, he's just an incredible human being. And I've seen and heard your story, and I appreciate the fact that you share your ups and downs. And so for those of you who don't know Levi, he is what Glenda Baker calls the YouTube king, which what an honor to have Glenda Baker, who I would say is the TikTok queen, give you as a reference, the YouTube king. But he had never closed a real estate deal until April of 2021 and didn't even launch his first video, like literally uploaded it December 5th of 2020. And kind of funny story. I know Michael Reese and Jay Kinder because they're from our area. I've known them for years. And I heard Levi say that he spent a lot of money from, April of 2020 to the end of 2020, trying not to be a real estate agent just for the same reasons that, even when I got into originating, I didn't like having to make calls and just, you feel like you're intruding almost. And so this whole concept of passive prospecting and how he and Travis Plumb, who's also from our area, that's his business partner, are just killing it. And it's not necessarily how you would think and assume, because I know I talk a lot about, social media, which YouTube is different. And I'll let Levi go into that, but welcome, Levi.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And that was great. I mean, it's funny. Most people don't know a lot of the backstory or the details like that. So appreciate that.
Well, one of my favorite things that you said, and it was when, so Levi and Travis are both veterans and fought in Iraq. And one of the things that resonated, yes, is when he said, when you're in Iraq, there's no days off. Like I just don't feel like going to work. And, so thank you for your service. And I appreciate everything that you put out there and the investment that you make so that we can all learn.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a true statement. It's funny because I actually sold gym memberships with Michael Reese around 2001, I believe, at Valley Total Fitness. And I remember the weekend he met Jay Kinder at the lake and then came back to Bally's on a Monday and was like, I'm getting into real estate. I mean, it was literally, how Michael is, right? He's 100% one way or the other. And I was like, okay, cool. And he got licensed 2002 and we were selling memberships there. And then next thing I know, he's gone, he left Bally's and he was trying to get me into real estate at that time. And I was kind of like, not really interested in being a real estate agent, and he worked on me for about 2 years. And so technically I got licensed in 2004 because he really pushed on me. And so I was like, okay, I was like, fine. I'll try this real estate thing. So I got licensed in 2004, but I was still in the reserves at that time. And then literally like a week after I got licensed, I got a call from my captain that said, hey, by the way, we're getting activated. So I need you to report in Fort Hood in 4 days. Say your goodbyes, pack your bags. And then I was gone for 18 months. And that was it. And of course, my license expired whenever I was deployed. But over that time, whenever I was in Iraq, I was like, well, I never really wanted to be a real estate agent anyway. So I never renewed it, And then whenever I came home from there, I went my separate ways. I mean, Mike and I stayed friends, but again, I never wanted to be a real estate agent. So I just went on about my life and went through my adventures and then watched Michael, do what he did in real estate. And then we just reconnected. And, now we're both real estate agents. Now I am one too, but that is true. It was, in Iraq, that was something that I try to just drive that point home with people, because a lot of times people ask questions, although it seems like it's kind of it's a forgotten subject of conversation these days. Most time people now say, "Oh, you're a veteran. Thank you for your service." And that's about it. 5, 10, 15 years ago, everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, tell me more," all on the edge of their seats. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, So I try to just drive that point home a little bit, that, and it's hard for me to remember too, because I remember whenever I came home, I had a completely different perspective. I was still in my early 20s, and to go to a third world country that is war torn, and where there's no trash control, there's no animal control. There, half the city is bombed out. People live in homes built of just cinder blocks. No grout, nothing to hold them together. 10 metal sheets as their roof. Sometimes palm tree leaves were their roofs, and you just go. They would walk out to the outside of their yard and just dump their trash there, and then that would leave like packs of wild dogs literally just roaming the city, eating everybody's trash that they threw out on the ground. When you see that in your early 20s, it puts a lot of things in perspective. It makes, when somebody gets mad because their Starbucks takes too long, you kind of go, yeah, they haven't really seen the other side of the world. So it gave me very good perspective early on. Now, I will say that a lot of that has faded since then as well, but I try to ground myself sometimes. It's always a reference point to say, well, remember when, and so, but that was the point. We didn't get days off there. We worked every single day. You were on, and not only did you just work every day, you were on call every day. You were on edge every day. It was living in a constant state of anxiety, and you didn't just wake up and say, I feel like sleeping in. Oh, I don't think I'm going to go to work today. Oh, I'm going to call in sick. That doesn't happen, mainly because you're bunked up next to every other, person right next to you, and they can see you. And so, you don't want to leave anybody hanging, and you had to show up. And even we lost a couple of our team members there. And even when that happened, you don't get a day off. There's not like, okay, let's stop missions today, to go to the funeral. So if you were on patrol or out on mission, you miss the funeral. And that's what happened. Half of our people, couldn't even, effectively mourn for somebody that you were working with the day before. And that was one of the toughest things too, is that you also didn't say, okay, well, let's just take the week off and try to process what happened. No, you go right back out there the next day. And so, I have one tattoo, and a lot of us got that tattoo, which is Sic Vis Pacem Parabellum. It's to have peace, prepare for war. And it's one of those things where to this day, I think about, for me to have peace at the end of the day, I have to get up and go to war, quotation marks now. I have to go to war every day, which means I have to get up. I have to go to the gym. I have to eat right. I have to make my videos. I have to have my meetings. I have to direct traffic. I have to, guide the team. I have to be present, so all of those things. And that's when I sit down at the end of the day, almost every day, I'm kind of like, where'd the day go? My goodness, I feel like I'm just going to sleep and getting back up again. But for me, it's that gives me peace though, because I don't sit there and just dwell on anything. Now, what also helps with that is having your calendar booked out. The thing is, when you're in the military, they fill your calendar, right? They fill your calendar for you. So they're always telling you where to go, when to be somewhere, which is why a lot of people like that. That's where you develop structure and discipline. But when you're a business owner and you work for yourself, you have to do that to yourself. You have to schedule your stuff out. You have to plan. And so I don't wonder what I'm doing from day to day. I know it's already there. It's already there a week ahead, a month ahead. Usually, we were just talking about next month as well, just planning for that. Because for me, if you start the day before, that's too late. The week before, that's also too late. The month before, now you're getting into really controlling your schedule and your life. The quarter before, now you're taking a better hold. But we start planning a year in advance, and we plan at the macro and look at everything that we need to do on the macro, which is conferences, events, opportunities, vacation. All that macro goes on the calendar, and that takes out some chunks, and the thing is conferences, events, those get scheduled out, those are available usually a year in advance. So if you're thinking about going to something next year, it's probably already scheduled and you need to block that off. So, those types of things are what really kind of help you win the day, which helps you win the month, which helps you win the quarter, and that will help you win the year. Is you have to reverse engineer, your whole schedule. I think look at it from the macro, but when it comes down to it, it's the micro that accomplishes the macro. So you have to plan from the macro down to the micro, but then you have to work it backwards, right? And so that's why every single day is just a constant step towards the goal. And like in the military, we used to count down, it's like when we started our deployment, it was 365 days and a wake up. And the next day would be like 364 days and a wake up, 206, and you would look at those big numbers, which would seem completely out in the future and forever. And the next thing you know, you're like 9 days and a wake up and we get to go home, and that was really some of the most scary part, because then you're like, that's the last thing when you want something to happen. But that was the scariest. One of the scary, actually, is the second scariest time in my life, because until I got sick, but that was the scariest time in my life. But also, I would say once it was over, one of the most rewarding and fulfilling times as well, as far as perspective, leadership, discipline, accomplishment, those types of things that it's, I'm proud of that. It's something that it was very, very difficult to do. And it was a very mentally challenging thing to do that, especially to live in a combat zone for an entire year. That's a lot, and so, you make it through that. It puts things in perspective. So if you haven't done that, maybe talk to somebody that has, if you are lacking some perspective, if you need some help on, getting your mind right. And if you think the day-to-day is a struggle, which I'm not discounting anyone's situation, but there's usually somebody that's been through a lot worse or a lot other situations, and it can kind of help balance. And, the thing is that you got to work through it day to day. So, ultimately that was a big learning opportunity for me. And then, but I came home with a digestive disease as well. And
you lost 50 pounds in a month, right?
Yep. Yeah.
1 month, Todd. Can you imagine 50 pounds?
That would be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was absolutely horrific. That was the scariest time in my life, because I remember specifically thinking I would rather be in Iraq than what I was going through at that time. It was like complete organ failure, every single organ shutting down. But that lasted 3 months. It was the most excruciating pain, and I was sleep deprived, bedridden. I lost so much weight that I could barely get to the shower or the bathroom. Like I would lose my breath taking a shower, just like standing up. I was so malnourished and had no weight, but all my bones were exposed. Like you could see my hip bones and my spine and my shoulder blades. So even like laying down, it was almost just like bone on bed. And so I could never get comfortable. And for 3 months, and I thought every single night, I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it through the night. My body was so broken. I thought it's just not possible. But every day kept happening, and I kept just like suffering through that, and went to 4 different GI doctors. They all said the exact same thing. None of them had any creativity. It was all the same protocol, same medication, do this. Oh, nope, you can't do that. One literally told me, I remember it like yesterday, he said, well, the New England Journal of Medicine tells me that you need to take this medication, because I was asking, I was like, is there something else? There has to be, what is it diet? Is it, no. Diet doesn't matter. Diet doesn't just eat whatever, keep eating whatever you want, even though you have a digestive disease. And, we'll throw more medication at it. And, that's where I say it was at the point of almost giving up. God's grace, I found a natural doctor and the natural doctor was the one that was like, oh, hey, well, let's just change your diet and put you on some vitamins. I was like, wait, what? He's like, oh yeah, diet has everything to do with it. So that was it. Changed my diet. And within 3 weeks, I started to get better. I saw significant improvement. And then I was able to get my appetite back and do that. So, that was a huge setback there. You fast forward, and then I started to build a very successful financial services business over the next 5 years and working with schools. And then I started to travel the world because I had never been anywhere. And I realized I've almost died multiple times in my life, and I've never even traveled the world except to Mexico, being in Texas, right? So Mexico, that's an easy trip. And then, so I went to 24 countries inside of 3 years, and I was working with teachers on their retirement planning. So I had, a teacher schedule, but like 5 times the teacher's income. So it was really a comfortable lifestyle, working 8 months of the year and then traveling. And that's what I did. I mean, one summer I was gone for 12 weeks, just straight and really living up life. And then 2020 happens and, the world shuts down. But the 2 things I was really good at, which was traveling and working with teachers, the school shut down and travel shuts down. And so there I was again at 41 years old this time, starting over again. And I was like, this sucks. So I was like, well, all right, what do I do now? And then here comes Michael Reese, right? Still trying to recruit me into real estate. Hey man, it's a great time to get in real estate. I'm like, well, it's either that or sell toilet paper, I suppose. Those were the 2 booming industries of 2020, right? So I didn't really want to sell toilet paper. So I thought, well, maybe I'll look into this real estate thing. But before I do that, I was like, let me spend $200,000 plus of my own money trying to figure out how not to be a real estate agent. And yes, I went all in. So here's the other aspect is that I was confident in my abilities at this point, but I still felt lost. I didn't really know what am I going to do and how do I start over? So I just said, well, I'm taking all my cash and I'm investing in everything all at once because something has to work. So I spent over $160,000 on 2 Amazon stores. I was supposed to just be the investor. These guys were supposed to be the operators. Of course, they crash and burn those stores. I lost all that money. And plus, since then, 2 years, I've probably lost another 50,000 just in inventory, like 2,000 here, 3,000 here, buy this, buy that, do this until I finally shut those down. And yes, I invested in a mentorship and I didn't know why. I just did it because I thought maybe I'll figure something out. And then I bought a bunch of courses. I bought some wholesaling courses, some fix and flip courses, some network marketing courses, because I was like, well, there's got to be some sort of like done for you system out there, right? Where again, I can just put money into it and somebody else will do all the work. And so, but what I learned in those investing courses, the wholesale, the fix and flip, I learned that, well, guess what you got to do? You got to cold call people. You got to send out postcards. You got to contact sellers. You got to, you got to do all the legwork and kind of like a real estate agent. So I was like, well, shit, if I'm, that sounds like a real estate agent to me, except you got to do all this. I was just like, well, if I'm gonna do that, then maybe I should just be a real estate agent. At least then I can work with Mike, maybe, and maybe he can teach me something. But so that was the mentality. And the irony of all that is that I ended up figuring out how to make videos on YouTube for free after spending all my money on everything else. And then that was it. From there, it's been a complete snowball, a compound effect. And yeah, over the last 18 months, over 200 transactions closed.
Well, that's so awesome. Congratulations. There's just so many places that we can go. Cause I think, perspective is so important. And you certainly have such a unique personal history that definitely makes us all think. You talk about planning, planning is my love language. That's my middle name. And I know we could certainly talk about what that looks like. And if we have time, we'll come back to it. I think really the people are here to learn. You've got your book, Passive Prospecting. So definitely we want to make sure that we mention that to people. And so ultimately you are, I'm laughing because you guys can't see it, but he's got his hand over. Looks very exciting. I just bought it while we were.
Oh, is the video not live in Facebook?
It's live in Facebook. There's a bunch of people in Facebook, so that's good. They're all watching, so they can
And
see
it only shows when someone's speaking.
I'm just talking to the crowd, though, who is, yes, that's true. We have it on speaker mode. Talk to the crowd who's listening to this in the podcast world, which is where most people will. And so, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, your book and kind of what it is that you love to teach people.
I love to teach passive prospecting, of course, and that is, which is now a #1 Amazon bestseller in 3 different categories. So New York Times, here we come. But that was the thing. I mean, so whenever I was moving into real estate and I finally decided, okay, I guess I'm going to get my real estate license and do this thing. What I did not want to do was prospect. I mean, really, at 41 years old, that's the last thing I wanted to do. I love like the movie Boiler Room. You ever seen that movie? And like when I was 20, that's what Michael Reese and I watched. That's what motivated us at Bally's, because at Bally's was not a gym. Bally's is a sales organization. Okay. That sold gym members. Okay. We worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you would call from 12 to 8 p.m., like 12 to 8 p.m. So you would get set up, you get there at 10 a.m. Our shift was from 10 to 10, literally. So from the first 2 hours, you could do like prep. They didn't care if you messed around a little bit, but by noon you had to be on the phones. And the whole goal was to only get 5 appointments the next day. So you'd have to call for 8 or 9 hours straight to try to get 5 appointments the next day. That was the whole goal. You wanted to get people in the gym to tour them around and sell them a membership. And that's what we do. And so you had to cut off calls at like 8 p.m. So from 8 to 10, we would have to kind of like plan out the next day. So, Boiler Room was really cool. It was a game, right? Let's just make 1,000 phone calls a day. But once you stop doing that, it's kind of like, well, that sucks. And whenever I got out of the military, when I came back from deployment, I sold cell phones at Costco. So if you've ever been in Costco and those little cell phone booths, I used to work that thing back in 2007. And guess what? Nobody goes to Costco to buy a cell phone. So guess what I had to do? I had to prospect to every single person that walked in that door. And I became the best gym membership salesperson at Bally's. I was the best because I was willing to make the most calls. I sold the most cell phones at Costco. You know why? Because I was willing to talk to every single person that walked by that booth, where most cell phone people sat back in the booth and waited for one person every other day to come and ask about a cell phone. But I used to stop people out with their shopping cart. I would say things like, back then, like rebates were really cool with cell phones, And so people would walk by and I'd say, hey, can I pay $50 towards your groceries today? And they would stop and be like, wait, what? What do you mean? I'd be like, yeah, let me pay $50 towards your groceries today. And they'd say, okay, how does that work? And I'd say, well, what cell phone do you have? Oh, I have AT&T. Awesome. What kind of phone do you have? So I'd immediately start asking questions, qualifying them, walk them over to the booth. Oh, how long have you had it? Are you under contract? Are you open to switching? Or do you need an upgrade? So I'd start qualifying them, working through that. And the next thing you know, I would sell over 100 cell phones every single month at Costco. Because I was willing to talk to the most people. From there, I got promoted because somebody who liked me so much there promoted or recruited me to a pharmaceutical company. Guess what? I became the best salesperson there because I was willing to call on the most doctors. And then from there, that's whenever I started my financial services business. And what did I do? I had to reach out to teachers. I had to actively prospect. So whenever everything came to a halt in 2020, and I sat there during the summer of 2020, trying to figure out how I was going to start over, I just realized I've been prospecting for almost 20 years. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of chasing after people. But I was always the best at it because I was willing to do it. But I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I knew, I was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a way to attract business. And with social media the way it is, because it wasn't that way back in 2005, 2007. Social media wasn't full on businesses at that time. It was literally like social. And so, now it's more of a business. And so I thought, okay, there has to be a way to attract business through social. I didn't understand the concept of passive prospecting at this point. I was just thinking attraction. Like, how could I do something that would get somebody to call me instead of me chasing after people? And so, of course, I started to look at social media, and I knew, of course, marketers out there generating business. started to look at real estate agents in social, and everybody was talking about Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And I was like, okay, so those were the first platforms I looked into, but none of them really set well with me, because I think what I found was, everybody was saying Instagram and TikTok is where it's at, especially TikTok. Like in 2020, every agent was waking up with 20,000 followers. So they're like, you got to be there. But I didn't really know of anybody turning over a significant amount of business from TikTok or Instagram. But at the same time, I saw seasoned agents, really talking about their stories and their success, their experiences. And I had zero experience. So I was like, well, okay, I guess I could talk about an FHA loan on a 60-second reel, but I haven't even helped somebody go through an FHA loan on a home. So it didn't feel authentic to me. I thought I could read about FHA loans or VA loans or, 7 tips to buy a home, but it just didn't, I could regurgitate that, but it didn't feel authentic because I hadn't even done it. So I thought, okay, let me, what's the next step? Okay, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Okay, not really there. YouTube was really the last choice. So once I started to dig into YouTube, I started to really understand, okay, YouTube's a search engine, not a social media platform. And guess what? People are searching about Dallas. They're not searching for real estate agents. They're searching about Dallas. And guess what? I've been in Dallas for like 20 years. I know Dallas. I can talk about Dallas. I don't have to be an experienced agent or know everything about a contract or an FHA loan if I can talk about Dallas, because that's what I started to look at. What are people searching? I started to find that they were searching about suburbs and neighborhoods and areas around Dallas. They weren't searching about the FHA loan, or the VA loan. There is some searching about that, but the reality is that, if you're searching, this is where mortgage people actually make a big mistake. I want to say a big mistake, but this is where if you shift your content to like what we do, see, a lot of mortgage people will make content about the mortgage process, which is understandable, right? It's their line of business. But you have to think about it. The people searching that content are probably already under contract with somebody else, and they probably had a problem in their issue. So now they're trying to find out answers, right? Because nobody has ever called us and say, hey, Levi, before we get started, can you explain to me the loan process or the escrow process or the title process or, what's an appraisal? Nobody says that, right? What they start out the phone call with, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the area, or what's the best area, or what's the best schools, or, what area is safe, all those types of things. That's what they call and ask about. And so that's why I started to put myself in the mind of the consumer, the client, before what I wanted to do. And so I was like, let me find out what they're searching and start finding topics and keywords and phrases and things like that had the highest search volume. And then if it was a neighborhood, well, Frisco or Plano, Texas, I was like, well, I know those areas. I can go talk about those areas. No problem. And then what happened is I started to search around on YouTube, and I found, I started looking at real estate channels on YouTube, and most of them were the same. A lot of agents kind of like just posting random content about open houses or listings, not very well done, not very well produced. And also, their title would be the street address, which nobody's searching specific street addresses or anything like that. So it was it's a chapter in the book I call selfish versus service-based marketing. So it's not that you're intentionally being selfish, but it's just the way that most people think about it. They think about, oh, I should put Levi Lascsak, a #1 real estate agent in Dallas, buy, sell, or invest. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. If I put that on my YouTube banner, to me, that is selfish-based marketing. That's kind of like, hey, look at me. Here I am. I haven't even really earned your right to give me a call in the first place. So when I started thinking about that, I was like, well, what are people doing? They're researching. They want to learn. That's why people are on YouTube. So if you title it something that describes, hey, learn about living in Dallas, Texas, which is what our banner says, that speaks to somebody who's researching or looking for information. And they may not like me, or at least not like me at first, but they'll stay for the educational aspect. And then guess what happens when they watch multiple videos? They're going to develop a relationship over time, So it's about putting yourself in the viewer or the client's shoes versus your own. And so that's why I named the channel Living in Dallas, because Living in Dallas, Texas versus Levi and Travis's home selling team, which is not the name of our team, by the way, but that's what most people would do, right? They would be Betty Sue and Mary Jo's home selling team. It's not searchable. Nobody was searching Levi Lascsak on YouTube or Travis Plumb. We had zero presence. Nobody knew who we were. So that is, most people would think, oh, I've got to brand myself. I've got to brand my team name. That is a form of selfish-based marketing. Again, not that you're intentionally being selfish, but you're thinking about me. I've got to brand me, right? And the more I brand me, I'm going to get out there. Well, no, if you brand yourself towards what people are searching for, which is Dallas, Texas, or Plano, Texas, or Frisco, Texas, I'm going to find people a lot sooner, and then the brand will follow. The brand will follow from there if I provide what people are actually looking for. So all of that is where I started to understand, and that's what I say is service-based marketing, because the audience is out there. The audience is out there searching, at least on YouTube. And if you're just the person in front of them, it's also another chapter in the book, which is intentional versus interruption marketing. So interruption marketing is what most business owners have conducted their entire career, because it's what we've been exposed to our entire career, our entire lives. Interruption marketing is every form of marketing, pretty much. It's billboards, magazine ads, TV commercials, cold calling, door knocking, right? It's the whole reason none of us like to get cold called in the middle of dinner. It's interrupting what we're doing. You can drive down the road and, you're walking to go to the game tonight, and the sports complex, it has 50 logos on the side. Well, technically those logos are interrupting. I mean, when's the last time you were like, oh, there's a Nike logo, I have to go buy some shoes right now? No, I mean, you just don't do that. But when you want to buy something, you have full intention to buy it, right? So that's when you have intention, you don't need any marketing or advertising to convince you that you need it. That's why I say, look, you could see a dog food commercial 10 times a day. Doesn't mean you're going to run out and buy dog food. But the second you pour out the last bowl of dog food, you're like, oh, well, nobody wants Fluffy to die. So now I have intention, right? I'm going to go buy dog food. I don't need to wait for a postcard to come in the mail to offer me dog food. So think about being in that position when it comes to real estate. Instead of chasing after all the people, interrupting people that you have no idea when or where they will ever be in the market, and interrupting them in their everyday life, whenever they could have just bought a home yesterday, and now they may not be even in the market for another 5 or 6 years. Guess what? People are in the market today, and they're actively searching. They're intentional about making a move right now. So if you put yourself in front of those people that are searching, guess what? You have a much higher likelihood of getting found sooner rather than later, and selling a home sooner rather than later, and making money, because our average contact to under contract in 2022 was 51 days. Out of we did 186 transactions in 2022 in 51 days. So the first time, and we had 100% inbound. We did 0 outbound. So everybody called us and they were under contract within 51 days on average. So that's intentional based marketing, is because we just put the information in front of people that are already searching for it. So those are the things like we talk about in the book. Actually, the first 9 chapters are those principles, because I'm trying to help shift people's understanding and mindset a little bit differently to say, okay, what am I doing that is making me bang my head against the wall? Or what am I doing that is making me frustrated or burn out, or, just making me chase? I feel like I'm in this constant state of pursuit. It's like why real estate agents will tell you, or even mortgage people will say, hey, you got to block those 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day for those calls, hey, it works. I'm not knocking that. I know a lot of people that have built very successful businesses doing that. But guess what happens when you go to the beach? You're not making those calls. Guess what happens whenever you're with the spouse and the spouse is like, you're not very present right now. You're like, well, I'm not lead generating right now. So I'm a little on edge. Okay. I'm feeling a little antsy because I didn't make my calls today. Or I feel like I should be, guess what? Our channel is passively prospecting for us, not just 24/7, but in a true compound effect. And that's another chapter in the book, which is YouTube does not take you time. It makes you time. Not only does it make you time, it compounds your time. And we all love the idea of compound interest. And if you were to invest in anything in your life, and I'm sure many people have, what's the number one question you ask before you invest? It's probably, what's going to be the return of my investment, right? When am I going to get my money back? Well, how come we don't ask that with our time? How come we don't say, well, if I'm going to invest my money, in these calls or these postcards, or I'm going to invest my time. When am I going to get that time back? And that's also very difficult to measure. I mean, it's almost impossible to measure. So YouTube, that's what I love about the analytics, is because I use the example of making one video. It took me 30 minutes to make it, but it's been watched over 11,800 hours, at least at the time I took the timestamp. So if you think about that, I've profited like 11,595 hours off that one 30-minute investment. So for those that tell me they don't have time to make YouTube videos, I would say, well, that's exactly why you should make YouTube videos, because clearly your time is not leveraged well enough because you don't even have time to invest 30 minutes in a video. So if you divide that time, 11,600 hours into a 24-hour period, that's equivalent to 1.34 years. So that 30-minute investment gave me 1.34 years worth of prospecting. So if you make phone calls for 30 minutes, what's that investment give you back? Well, if you don't sell anything, you traded a minute for a minute. You traded 30 minutes for 30 minutes. That's all you got back. You invested 30 minutes. You may not even get anything back because you may need to make 30 minutes worth of calls for the next week or two before you actually get a deal. But I made one video in 30 minutes. It's given me back 1.34 years. And I mean, I can directly measure that. On top of that, last year, 2022, our channel was watched almost 105,000 hours. That's equivalent to 12 years. So 2022, our channel passively prospected for us 12 years in a 1-year time frame. So that's why we're able to do the business that we're doing. It's also why I traveled to 25 conferences last year and took 2 vacations and still had all of that time prospecting for me. And I wouldn't have been able to do 186 transactions, take 2 vacations, and speak at half of those conferences if my lead generation was directly tied to me. And so that's why a lot of people don't like to take vacation. They don't like to go to conferences. They don't like to take the weekends off. They don't like to stop at 5 o'clock because they're like, well, no, I've got to generate some business and it's dependent upon me. And guess what? They get caught up in that cycle. They get burnout. The family gets frustrated. The spouse gets frustrated. The kids feel neglected, all those types of things. And it's like,
check.
And it sucks, right? It's like, yeah. And so, I'd rather make some videos and let that do all the work for me. And now it's passive prospect. It's still active conversion. Okay. So there's still some work into it, but it's so much easier when people call you. Like in 2022, we averaged 5.4 inbound leads per day. So could you imagine having 5.5 people? I'm not sure where the half person comes in, but 5.5 people call you every day and is like, is this Levi from the videos? I would love for you to sell me a house. I mean, that's the game changer. That's the opportunity here. And so the first 9 chapters of the book, I'm trying to just shift your mindset to get you thinking a little bit differently about, not that there's anything wrong with all that stuff, but at some point, if you don't at least add this to your business plan, you're going to be in the same cycle. It's why everyone jokes around that real estate agents never retire, because they get caught up in lead generating and transactional business, which guess what? Every time you stop, the business stops. Every time you stop lead generating, your lead generation stops. Every time you hang up the phone, you're not lead generating anymore. Every time you close that deal, you're trying to find the next one. As to where we have such a full pipeline, they just continually come in, week after week, day after day. So that's the opportunity.
Like, what a problem that would be, that you have so many qualified leads that you've really already kind of sold because of the leveraged trust from being on YouTube, but they're calling you to where you need more team members to help take the leads because you have so many that you're just naturally attracting. Like, imagine that problem for those who are listening. Like, that could, and you guys, I mean, technically you didn't really start until the beginning of 2021, where I meet with clients all the time and they're like, I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to talk about. Like, you and Travis didn't even have a clue, nor had you even closed a real estate transaction. And you guys just went all in and did it and were consistent enough to now build in just 2 years. Like, this is what you've built. So I just want to, everyone to keep that in perspective, that you guys were brand new to the space. You've only had the channel for 2 years and you're literally attracting phone calls every day. Like,
Yep.
qualified leads. Like,
yeah. And you know what they never said, or they never asked me. They never asked me, how long have I been in business? How many transactions have I done? Am I a top producer? What brokerage am I with? None of that. Why? Because the videos gave them the perception that I do know Dallas. I've been in Dallas for 20 years, again, because I'm able to talk about Dallas, which is what the information they're searching for. They automatically assume I'm a real estate expert. But you know what? When we got the first client and they're like, we'll take this house. We're like, cool. We didn't say, thank God you're our first
yeah,
we didn't say that. We said, awesome. I'm going to go home and write up the contract. I'll email it to you to e-sign. Is that okay? Yes. Then we went home and we're like, how do you write a contract? I don't know. Okay, we'll call somebody. So we call somebody. We're like, hey, we got to write a contract. Can you help us with this? And they're like, okay, yeah. Can we get on Zoom? And so we sat there and had somebody walk, that's how we wrote our first contract. But we don't tell the client that. They don't know. What did they do? They got a fully filled out contract in their email, right? And they don't know that we're on the other side going, okay, how do we do this? Okay, but wait, there's 7 addendums we have to attach. What the heck? Okay, oh my God. Oh, wait, we need, and every time we did another, we're like, you need another addendum? Oh, you got to have an addendum for the, oh my, another. They didn't see that. And so then we're like, hey, yeah, sorry, I had another phone call, but I just sent that over. Even though it took us 3 hours to write up the first contract, they didn't know that. We're just like, I'm sorry, I got another phone call, from YouTube. It was crazy, but I was just able to send that over to you. Oh, they're like, sure. And then they're like, then they would text you or email you. What does this line mean? And we were like, oh, line 87A in the contract. What? Hey, buddy, what is that? What is that? And then we type back, oh, don't worry about that. It's no big deal, So the thing is, we look like, we knew the area and that was it. But all the real estate stuff, they'd be like, well, so what kind of loans? I don't know. Talk to Brian McCauley, our mortgage lender, right?
yeah.
He'll explain to you everything. I don't really keep up with that mortgage stuff. So you talk to Brian, he'll tell you everything you need. Okay, cool. And so that was it. We didn't have to learn every single aspect of every single thing. We're okay now, but it's like, all right, at the time we don't let on to that. Right. That's why I tell people, don't show your cards, keep your poker.
Well, and what's funny is when I met Travis, this was like 2018, Travis was nervous to be on video. Like he was the behind the scenes guy, usually working with, Woods Davis, working on Facebook ads, kind of the click funnel guy, but never would he want to be on video. So as I've seen him progress and I see him on the videos, anytime I see like a YouTube ad that comes up, or I just kind of chuckle inside because there's so many people are probably listening to this that fight that same dilemma of like, I want all of these things, but am I willing to put myself out there and put myself on camera and not like the way that I look and not like the way that I sound to have this compound effect and to have this kind of success? Like at what point is the pain going to outweigh, that which you really want? And so I'm super proud to see now what you guys have accomplished and even Travis's own journey of having to get over that fear, because look at the results and just the peace that your life can have, where it's not the chaos of, I'm just going to sit here and either door knock or cold call all day to get not a lot on the other end.
Right. Yep. He still sucks on camera, by the way. I'm just
well, and I know you're tight on time, so let's make sure that we get all the ways for people to connect with you. So you all should be subscribing to their Living in Dallas, Texas YouTube channel. You should all be subscribing to their Passive Prospecting YouTube for Real Estate channel. You should all be buying the book. And then you've got a Calendly link if someone's a real estate broker, real estate team who may want to connect with you to learn about this. It sounds like you coach people on how to do this. So we'll make sure we put this into the show notes for those of you listening on all the podcast platforms. We'll also make sure that we get it into the Facebook group, since there's a bunch of you watching it live in there and probably the recording as well. What else do we want to make sure that people know about you, Levi, so that we can make sure that we get all the people, all the info that they need?
Yeah, the link to book a call, that's just if you want to learn more. We've built all this out in an easy step-by-step, video course, of course, and that walks people through this. I think mortgage brokers really need to think about this as well. Again, as I mentioned earlier, most of the time they're usually focused on content for people that are already under contract with somebody else. And if you want to capture people in the research phase, before they've even decided to hire an agent or a mortgage broker, you have to make content that they're searching for, which is information about the cities and the neighborhoods and the suburbs. That's what they're searching for. Again, we just became people's agent by default because they ended up watching our videos and they weren't even thinking about an agent. They're thinking about, I've got to move and this is stressful and crazy and I'm not sure where do we go. And again, they're just like, hey, we watched so many of your videos, we thought might as well just give you a call. And think about as a mortgage broker, how powerful that would be, that if you captured people in the research phase and they called you and you're able to pre-qualify them, and then you're able to pass those leads on to your partner agents and say, hey, I've got a pre-qualified person that's ready to go in the next 45 days. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge opportunity for a mortgage broker. So you just want to think about, putting yourself in the shoes of the buyer and the seller, because we capture sellers this way as well. Then it's a great way to do business. And again, for me, that's what's allowed us to scale and grow the way we have, is because I'm not tied to the prospecting aspect of the business. And I think everybody loves the idea of passive income. And why is that? I think because ultimately, to me, passive income means freedom. It means it allows you that you've built up something. Now, that's the irony of it, right? You have to do a ton of work in the beginning to get to the passive income. But that's the beautiful thing about it, is that the work up front gives you the freedom on the back end. This is the same concept. Why work, and most of the time you have to do that through a ton of prospecting. Why not? What if we pacified the first part of that? You passively prospect, which could lead you to the passive income, because I know this will move into what we want to move into as we move into investments and acquiring properties, or if we want to do fix and flips, or, as we want to move, I'm starting to really eyeball multifamily and things like that. Guess what? I've got an established audience. You think I'm going to have to make phone calls if I ever want to raise money or fund deals or find buyers or investors? Nope. I'll make a video. And guess what? You had Pace on, right? Pace said that, I don't know if he said it in your call. I didn't see that one, but I know Pace says that he has $100 million at his disposal just based on his community. Right. So all he has to do is put a word out to his community and say, hey, I'm about to buy this, 300 unit apartment complex. Who wants in? And he has all the money raised. He makes one video. He'll have the money raised to do that, if he wants to use money. Now, he does things a lot more creatively. So he acquires a lot of things that don't need funding. But at the same time, it's the same concept. He's way ahead of us on the YouTube game, but that's how he attracts money for those big deals. And that's where I want us to go, because I love real estate, but I don't want to be caught up in the single family home transactional business forever. And even after 2 years, I realize that's not a long-term play for me. So I'm going to have to, that's where I want to move myself into. And I know when the time is right, all I got to do is make some content and I'll attract the entire, all the business that I need, the investors, the buyers, the seed money, all of that, it'll be there.
Awesome. And so I put the link in down below. If someone wants to get that video course, is that the link that they use to get that video courses, or somewhere online? They
can book a call. Yeah, they'll book a call and speak with myself, Travis, or a team member. And, that way we can at least explain a little bit more about it. And so, that way, if they're interested, they want to know more, if they want to get the book lays out a pretty good blueprint on that as well. The video course walks you through everything visually, step by step. The book will give you a good concept of that. So it just depends on what really fits for you. But somebody will make $1 million from the book. I know that.
I have no doubt. So depending, I was going to make some, really bad joke about our remedial audience, but those of you who need the video lesson, the awesome news is that Levi's got that. Those of you who want to read the lesson, he's got that as well. I'll probably do both because I'm a slow learner, and it would definitely help me. I'd love to have you back on again in the future to talk about your planning process. If you're open and game for that, we'll still pitch your book and your YouTube there, but I think our audience would love that as well if we can twist your arm. And what else, last minute thing you want to say before I let you get on with your day?
It's not saturated. and you are you. This thing is ultimately people connect with personalities. So even if you look at your market or look on YouTube and you're like, oh my God, there's 3 people making videos on YouTube. Guess what? 3 people making videos in your market on YouTube is not saturated. You just got to do better, make better content, outwork them. And ultimately, people will call the person that they want to work with. You can all make videos about the same suburb, but and probably provide the same information, but they're going to say, you know what, I kind of like Todd a little bit better than Debbie. I kind of like Levi a little bit better than Todd. And so that's what happens. They'll just say, you know what, great information from everybody, but I kind of resonate with this person. So, if you don't get on YouTube, nobody will ever call you from YouTube. So
famous words. So obviously, if you guys haven't caught on, right, Levi's a badass veteran. So thank you again for your service. You're someone who's done lots of different things, but you said you were more successful at gym sales because you made more calls. You said you were more successful at working in the Costco selling phones because you're willing to talk to more people. You said you're most successful as selling medical sales because you're willing to talk to more doctors. So the unique thing is that you've since then multiplied yourself, as you said, because you're using YouTube, the strategy that you're willing to share with the world. All you have to do is buy your book or subscribe to your courses. So I really appreciate you sharing that with all of us here today, because the bottom line is, as he said, he's leveraged himself. He's got leads coming in. He's built something super unique, and really grateful for your time and all of you who've listened. And we'll make sure that everyone knows how to reach out to you. But thanks again to Levi. And we look forward to hearing the stories from whoever here listens to this and makes their first $1 million. Thanks to Levi.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'll take care.